So can you just introduce yourself real quick and kind of how long you've been at Northern then?
Oh, well, I'm Ansley Valentine.
Mm-hmm.
I've been here since 2010.
Okay.
Um, Prior to here, I was at Kent State University and I taught at the College of Worcester.
So we've been here the same amount of time then. I started back in 2010.
Oh,
so
gosh.
yes, I'm entering my final year here. So all right. Well, hopefully you have a lot more years in you here then. So
We'll see how that goes.
all right then. So today it's an interview on how do you measure teaching effectiveness for my 8495 class. So let's just start off with the basics. What got you interested in teaching?
Oh boy. I don't know. I guess I felt, I felt like I wanted to give back.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I'd had a lot of really great teachers,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd always had a desire to want to share. Um, and I think and for me, I think as an artist as well, it really informs what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think always trying to think, well, what is it that I do? Sometimes that takes the mojo out of it when you spend time thinking about it
Mm-hmm.
to try to explain it to somebody else. But
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, it sometimes inspires me or spurs me on in different directions for
Mm-hmm.
projects and things.
Like seeing things from a different angle of
Mm-hmm.
sorts.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I can totally see that. And as art major myself, I can totally
Yeah.
see that. Then. So, all right. What's the easiest thing about teaching for you?
The easiest thing.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Or what comes like most naturally when you are teaching to a whole class in front of all these kids?
Wow. I don't know. It's really hard. I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know that any of it is really particularly easy, or that comes easily. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I stress and agonize about it all the time,
Mm-hmm.
so it's never.
An easy moment.
It's not. Yeah. I mean, I suppose you try to make it look easy.
Mm-hmm.
You try to, but that's, in some ways that's the nature of performance too. You want it to look like it's effortless and, but for me, I'm always like, oh my God, are they gonna like this?
Mm-hmm.
Or, oh my God, there's one person who's not paying attention. I'm a complete failure.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know that any of it's really easy.
Easy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah. No, I mean, and I can understand. My dad is a teacher as well,
Mm-hmm.
and he teaches music. So I can totally see he comes home and has like all of these stories of like the stresses for it and stuff. So, so then this one's probably going to be a bit more of an easier question: is what's the most difficult, or what has been the most difficult part of being an educator?
Oh, gee. Well, I think sometimes it's a real challenge to know what to teach.
Mm-hmm.
I think it can be a real challenge to keep everybody engaged. I feel like that actually has gotten harder over time.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to keep people engaged in what's going on. Because everybody's got a phone and Snapchat or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So they have so many other things that they would rather be doing
Mm-hmm.
than being in class. Or they come to class out of obligation, but they'd rather be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to keep the dog and pony show going so they actually pay attention.
Mm-hmm. No, I can see that I'm in Professor Thompson's class right now, and that is an issue that keeps coming up then there. So
Yeah.
It's always fun to deal with these new distractions.
Yeah.
So what kind of a student were you like when you were back in school?
Oh, well, what kind of student was I? Well, in high school, I graduated 13th in my class, which high school really wasn't that hard.
Mm-hmm.
College was a lot more challenging. But then I went to a really hard school. I think if I'd gone to, an easy school, it would have been a cakewalk. But,
Right.
I went to a small private liberal arts college where everybody in the school, was either valedictorian, salutatorian, or, they had almost all graduated in the top 10% of their class. So they were guys who were very driven. And so it was very rigorous. A lot of reading.
Where was this?
Wabash College.
I almost went there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But when you said guys, I was like, wait a minute. No, I was seriously considering going to Wabash for a liberal arts degree. So
Yeah.
and I ended up here because of the art program. But
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. No, it's so it was not easy, which is good. I mean, I feel like the majority of what I do on a day-to-day basis are things that I learned in my undergrad. Far more than what I learned in grad school. Far, far, far more. And particularly for the things that I teach, I think are mostly things that I learned in my undergrad. How to think, how to argue, how to write. I use those skills on a daily basis in what I do.
So it sounds like you were pretty studious and got really serious.
I mean, I was like anybody else.
Right.
You're
as much as you can be.
Some days you are, and some days you're just like, oh, I don't want to.
It's like, well, I'm going to stay home and do nothing all day. Yes, I can.
Well, and sometimes you do that. I mean, I guess you kind of have that ebb and flow, but I think it's when you're in a culture like that where it really almost takes more effort not to go to class or not to do things because everybody it's like, well, it's just what everybody does.
Right.
I think when you're at a larger school where maybe you're a little more independent or it's a little more spread out or there's just a broader range of people and their lives and their activities. There may not be the kind of peer pressure that says, no, you have to go to class, you have to do your homework, you have to, I mean, I was in a fraternity, so, just walking through the house, well, what's everybody doing, Sunday to Monday, or Sunday to Thursday, everybody's sitting there with their books cracked open, and, I mean, that's real hard to, walk by, a whole 40 or 50 people who are all sitting here studying, and you're just like,
I should probably do that.
I should probably do that, I mean, and I had rehearsal and things like that, but still, I think on the whole, it kind of drives everybody to, or most people to try to keep up, with what you're doing.
Yeah. No, yeah, we've always been firm believers of, we being my family, is you become like the people you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
So if you're surrounding yourself with people who are academics and wanting to excel, it's going to rub off on you easily. So that's what I try to do now too. So it's like, okay, really, I know I need to study. If I hang out with you, we're going to end up going somewhere where I probably shouldn't be because I have to write this paper. So
there you go.
And vice versa then. So, okay. So now I want to get into a bit more on education systems of it and their effectiveness. How effective do you think multiple choice exams are for learning?
Well, I don't think they are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I perhaps have a bias because of where it is that I come from and how but I feel like a multiple choice is really just sort of what are the facts. Is it a right answer or not? And I think that can be helpful on a certain level, but I think as far as long-term learning or being able to actually have application, it's really much more about analysis, synthesis and analysis. I think you have to be able to say, I have all of this information. Now, what do I do with it? And that's a much more valuable skill, you know, than can you regurgitate, you know, what was the date of the 1812 war,
Right.
you know, I mean, you know, and those things are important, you know, especially if you're going to play Trivial Pursuit or something like that. But, you know, I think as far as like practical application of the things that you're doing in your career or things in your major, you know, it's like nobody's going to present, you know, a client's not going to present you with a multiple choice exam.
Right.
You know, they're going to say, you know, I want you to design this campaign, or, you know, you know, I want you to perform this role, or whatever that might be. You know, so I think it's much more about how you apply those skills, or how you think to reach a conclusion of like, well, this is what I should do. You know.
Okay. Do you think that having like a benchmark based on a multiple choice to make sure students are at a certain level, even in the arts, is a necessity?
Well, I mean, I think it's a necessity only because of factors outside of the academy. You know, I mean, this, you know, our perpetual drive to assessment, you know, and standardized tests, you know, almost says, well, you know, you have to do those things because, you know, you have to have some quantifiable thing to show somebody else that, oh, they didn't know anything and now they know something. You know, but then I question, like, okay, well, you can fill that out, but what do you really know? You know, that doesn't mean that, you know, because you can pass the multiple choice exam about acting, you know, and acting terminology. Okay, well, you learn the terms.
Right.
Does that make you a good actor? No. You know, I had people in my acting class like, okay, well, you're really great in that regard because that's the kind of learner you are. You know. Can you act? No, not at all. You know, but you can answer the questions of like, okay, well, when was this founded, or who did this, or you know, those kinds of things. So, you know, so I think it's, you know, it can be a measure, you know, because certainly jargon or terminology are important in an industry or in subject matter, but it can't be, you know, it can't necessarily be the, you know, can't really be the only measure, because I think it only, you know, it only takes you so far. I mean, it really only assesses a fraction of what it is that a professional actually has to do.
Okay. No, and I agree with you, Pat, too. Coming from a art background myself too, I would way rather write a paper expressing how I know than a multiple choice exam person. So. What is the most rewarding, as an educator, what is the most rewarding experience for you?
I think seeing people grow and improve, and to really think, okay, well, this is where you started, and now 4 years later, you're doing this, or, you know, 12 years later, you know, oh, you're out and you're doing these things with your life and your career. So, you know, then that makes all the angst worthwhile.
And just all the like teenage years where it's just like, what are you doing? Like, and then go into, oh, okay, this is what you're doing. All right,
yeah. Well, you hope as long as they, you know, survive long enough, they'll hopefully do something and make something of themselves, you know, or not, you know. I mean, on some level, you just, you know, you say, well, I do what I do, and you know what the person does with it is, you know, what they do with it, and you know, and sometimes it's very evident, and sometimes it's not, and that's okay.
From an educator's standpoint, what have you seen has been the most rewarding thing for a student? And that can be from giving a performance to accelerating and being excited in something else coming to you. Just
let's see. I don't know. Like I said, I probably would answer it in the same way.
Okay.
You know, it's just saying, like, seeing how far somebody has come and see them accomplish something. You know, at the College of Worcester, all the seniors had to do senior independent study. You know, which is sort of a master's level thesis at the end of their in their senior year in their major. And so obviously a lot of the theater students would do performance of some kind, and then they'd have their 70-page research paper to go along with that. But more than once they would do something that was like, wow, it's like they'd been sort of okay performers or designers or whatever for 3 years, and then suddenly with the press of, okay, now I have to do this. I have to do this on my own, or it's my own thing. That suddenly, all those things that you were trying to teach and make real for 3 years, suddenly all of it coalesces, and it's like, now I understand. I've seen that happen over and over again. Which to me says, well, you have to have that rigor. There has to be something that's really hard that you have to do. That's at the end, or towards the end of your training process. Because if you don't have that, there's no press for, okay, now how do I learn all this crap that I've been, how do I use all this crap that I've been learning? So I think that's when like all the discrete silos of information all start to come together, and you start having that synthesis, right? So I feel like you have to provide those kinds of opportunities in the senior year, whether that's a capstone project, or if it's an internship, where you actually are given some major responsibility for something to do. But I think you kind of have to jump off the building and see where you land.
Throw your work out there and just see how it's.
Yeah. Because otherwise, I don't think you have no reason for practical application. And kind of going back to that multiple choice question. Multiple choice is not practical application. It doesn't provide that real opportunity for you to say, okay, how do I make these connections between things? And I feel like you have to have this something that's sort of unsolvable to make your brain make all those connections. I think you can know things, but knowing and using are two different things altogether. And I feel like having that stress, having that press of like, okay, I have to do this, then actually allows you to go farther than you thought you could go. Because you didn't know. And we don't know. I think we as teachers, we have no idea,
So it's kind of all about the journey and the fun along the way with it.
Yeah. I think it is that. It's the journey to mastery of something, and along the way, I think you have to have those challenges that you have to face challenge to know and for new synapses to form between things. And I think having a mentor, as part of that journey, to help you get unstuck, or help you to, give you some insight or some further knowledge that you didn't get or have or whatnot, I think is really important.
Nice. Okay. So what do you think makes a good educator? And you can have it relative to only your field, because I know that's a big question to answer for math teachers and stuff too. So
no, I think you have to be. I think you have to care. I think you have to have a real passion for whatever it is that you're teaching. I think you have to really care about your students and care about their success. More than your own. I think when you're in that act of teaching, it has to be really what you're doing for them and not the other way around. think it helps if you know something about what it is that you're teaching.
Mhm.
But I don't know that I don't think you have to be, the expert, the world expert to be able to teach something,
Mhm.
or to be an effective teacher, Um, so I think those things.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, and I mean, I agree. Some of the best teachers I have, it's if they're just in it for the paycheck or in it because they love kids or something. No, you have to like the content you're teaching as well. And those have been the best professors
Yeah.
for me at least. So I'm right there
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
So, how do you? And I mean, especially in the arts, I know that this is actually really relevant. But like, how do you evaluate your own teachings? Like, do you sit down at the end of the day and just think like, okay, this is what I did good, or like, do you have your own like process for evaluation for yourself?
Well, I don't know. I guess I tend to think about it on a usually I do think about it almost every day.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I get done with class, I'm always thinking, okay, how was that, or
Mm-hmm.
why did I say that, or oh, I meant to do these things, or so and so wasn't very engaged today.
Mm-hmm.
So and then I think, okay, what do I need to do differently next time?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's a really continual, a continual reflection process. Trying to think, okay, what can I do better next time?
Mm-hmm. Okay. What advice would you give to a younger you about going into education?
Oh my God. A younger me. Boy, I don't know. I never really imagined that I would be teaching as soon as I don't know. Maybe I would have stuck with the high school thing longer.
Mm-hmm.
Because I really enjoy working with high school students. They're a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, I don't know. I suppose I could have. I don't know.
That's fine too. I'm like, it's okay.
I've never thought about that question. I don't know.
We can come back to it if it pops into your mind. And you just gotta
Okay.
blurt it out. By all means, go ahead then. So I know as teachers you have to go, and professors you have to go through evaluations through the administration and stuff. How often do you believe that educators should be evaluated from their superiors?
Oh, well, I don't know. I suppose. Yeah, again, that's a good question. I don't know. I guess the standard is once on an annual sort of basis, but then you get to a point where that doesn't really happen anymore. Yeah, I don't know. I would probably say, on an annual or semi-annual basis would be nice. But professors are such a funny lot.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Funny lot? What do you mean by that?
Well, they're so I think many professors are extremely insecure people. That they're insecure, which is actually it works in the favor of the academy because they're many of them are insecure about am I the smartest about this, am I the expert about this? No, I'm not yet, so I better read some more.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes making those challenges to are you being effective, are you a good teacher, that you don't they don't respond very well to that.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get a very emotional response. So I think it would be very challenging to say, okay, no, somebody needs to come and look at what you're doing
Mm-hmm.
on a very regular basis. Because there is that. Well, I know what I'm doing, sort of thing. But I think conversely, like on the other side of the equation, before you have tenure, somebody's looking at your stuff all the time. So I think, so then when you get tenure, it's kind of like, and then I think a lot of people start on a sort of a downward slide.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody, obviously, but I think it happens for many people. It's like they were hazed
Mm-hmm.
when they were, instructors or, assistant professors before they got tenure. And so now that they're post tenure, it's kind of like, and it's kind of like coasting down to
Like
a
kind of
soft.
going through the motions almost.
Yeah. I think because you had worked so hard and were so stressed about it for so long, if you think like all the way through your PhD, all the way through, your point of getting tenure, which is maybe 6 years in or 10 years, depending on maybe you were an adjunct for 3 or 4 or 5 years before you got on the tenure track. So they've gone through maybe 12 or 15 years of being continually scrutinized by a lot of different people, that when you get on the other side of that, it's kind of like, phew, now I don't have to do that anymore, Now again, for some people, their motivation to excel is great, and so they keep up with that. But I think for other people, that because there's not anybody, they're not truly, or they're not terribly accountable to anybody else, and there's nobody who's really even just coming in to look at what they're doing to give them some constructive feedback. That they may not be as sharp as they were 10 years before, 15 years before.
So do you think that after tenure is where evaluation should actually be happening a bit more consistently?
Well, I wish we had some system that was sort of workable for that, But I think it would be such a at this point if you said, okay, now we're going to try to implement something, oh my gosh, the hue and cry that would go up. And it is stressful. I remember going through my tenure review at the college, and you've got people from the tenure committee coming in to observe your class, and you've got people from your department, you have people from outside your department who are sitting there watching you teach, and you're just hoping like, oh my God, I hope this goes well today. I hope nobody takes a dump on the floor or something in class, or
something that hasn't happened.
Oh,
to you,
not to me.
I'm like, wow.
But people certainly have done things in class where you're just like, are you kidding?
Like, what are you doing?
But you hope that okay, the day that the vice president is there to watch, that
it's not that day.
It's not that day. And that things go well for that day. Or that if they don't go so well, that they will take into account that not every day in class is a stellar, life-changing day, and sometimes you win some, you lose some. He's hoping the aggregated comes out that it's okay, But I certainly can see I think it takes a lot of energy to say, okay, I have to think about what I'm doing. I have to try to, be accountable to the people that I'm teaching. And I have to try to make a quality experience for them. That takes a lot of energy, and takes a lot of commitment. I think the flip side of that would be very, very easy to do. To say, okay, well, I've taught this class 20 times. I have my notes. And I don't know. I never wanted to be that professor who takes out the yellow piece of paper and puts it on, puts my little folder and puts my thing here. It's like, I I've lectured from these notes for 25 years, you know.
Right,
Give
like,
the same thing, you know, that has no bearing on, okay, what's happening now, or
right,
what's
like
happening
no
with these people,
current relevance.
you know, or just responding to the, you know, to the group of people that you have,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I mean, you know, I feel like, you know, I feel like every time I teach a class, even if it's the same class, you know, it's completely different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the people are different. I'm different. What I think about something is different. You know, so I keep, you know, like I try to keep notes or records of like, okay, well, what did I do from day to day?
Mm-hmm.
But you know, when I teach, you know, if you come into my acting class next semester, and if we got into our Wayback Machine and said, okay, now we're going to go back to, you know, acting one in 1997, you know, it's like they're completely different,
Right.
you know. So I think you always have to, you know, I think you have to always be doing things differently, and I think it would be great if there were a system whereby you could get folks to come in and see what you're doing and give you feedback on a regular basis. But you know, we just don't. You know, it's just not really possible because everybody's teaching, everybody's busy, everybody's, you know. I mean, you know, hardly anybody comes to my classes or sees what I'm doing. I mean, I team teach a class, so at least then I have one colleague who sees what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to
give you some feedback.
Right, but you know, I mean, nobody's come to watch my acting class or my directing class or any of those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I really then have to be accountable to myself, and I have to be accountable to my students, and I try to set up opportunity for me to get or take feedback from them in an ongoing basis.
Mm-hmm.
You know, while the class is going on, as opposed to just looking at, well, you know, what does everybody say on the evaluation sheets at the end of the semester? I feel like, well, at that point, it's kind of lost.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I suppose you could say, okay, I can do something different going forward, but you know, why not try to be doing something different while you're in the middle of it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you can, you know. So I think it's, you know, I think in the absence of having a system whereby you have post tenure review or feedback, if you just, you know, but you know, instead, are you building assessment for yourself into the process where you can get feedback from the students, at least to say, okay, how is this going? You know, and maybe that manifests in, okay, I want you guys to take a quiz today.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it feels like on the, you know, students' part, it's like the onus is on them to do well. Like, oh my God, I'm going to fail this class if I don't. But I think on the flip side, you know, you can look at that and say, nobody in the class got question number 5, 7, and 9. You know, okay, so what?
Like, you know, why didn't they
get that? Okay, well, okay, what do I need to do differently? Or now I've got to do something. Oh, it's important that they understand what these concepts are. Okay, well now I've got to change up my plan here for what we're doing in class, so that I know that they walk away with that knowledge or that information. You know, and that's not something, you know, I think by the time you get to the final exam, you know, that's not the time to find out, oh my God, I really explained this. Or it made sense to me, but clearly made no sense to anybody else. You know, so I think in that way you can kind of make for yourself those opportunities to evaluate your teaching and your teaching effectiveness, and then try to make changes in course as you go.
Yeah, and again, right there with you too. I think that's a good way of evaluating, like for self-reflection on there. It's just like setting up these, like, okay, like reflecting on things too. I know that's really big in my PR classes that I'm in right now too, is evaluation and reflection upon what you did and how you can do it better, or like what is effective and what isn't. So, okay, just have a couple more questions. In college, this is a little bit different, but when we're younger, students go through like the NWEA and the MEAP, and they're using those tests to evaluate how teachers do, or like how effective they are. I know that there was one teacher who She taught like K through 6, and one group of her students tested below what they should have at the time, and she was let go because of it. Do you think that using these exams is an effective evaluation reflected upon the teacher?
Mm. Well, no.
Mm-hmm.
No, because I think what, what it does is, says that, okay, everybody has to teach the same thing, uh, and that all the students have to learn it in the same way,
Mhm.
And I think particularly when you talk about, well, I think all people are learned in different kinds of ways, you may be a reflective learner, you may be an experiential learner, you may be a more analytical learner, so, to say, well, there's this one size fits all, again, that multiple choice, to say, do you know these things? Says, okay, everybody is progressing at the same rate, and I don't think, well, I don't think that that's really what happens. I think particularly in younger grades, I think you learn in fits and starts, and um, there's this book called Mastery, actually, which is a really great book, but it talks about, like, well, what's your journey to becoming a master at something? And they say, okay, it's not a straight incline like this. You go up and you plateau for a while, and maybe you swirl around like this, and you might come back down, and then you have a huge jump all of a sudden up to here, and then you plateau again, and so I think even for younger students, it's even more so of that, and so teaching to the test is the fear-based reaction that you have as a teacher. You think, okay, well, my job is on the line. If these kids can't add 3 plus 3, even though Susie has a spatial understanding deficit, and everybody else in the class, gets it, but Susie, she's working around whatever challenge she has there. You're thinking, okay, well, I better make sure that everybody can do these things, which may not necessarily be the most creative or the most engaging or the most life-changing opportunities that you can provide for your students, for me, I feel like some of my best classes were ones where, we completely trashed the syllabus. I remember one acting class I had, we were supposed to have, like, every 2 weeks we were doing, a different thing, and, a different kind of acting or whatnot, and we got to soap opera, and they really, everybody in the class, like, really enjoyed that a lot, and was like, oh, we want to do more of this, and I was like, well, okay, so, we ended up creating a 4-episode soap opera, where we created the characters, we had to make the family trees, we had to, figure out what all the relationships were across this little community, and, we wrote the whole thing, people took different parts, we developed some stuff in class, and then we shot the whole thing and edited it all together,
Wow.
and, so that took up, like, the whole rest of the semester.
Right.
That was not what I had planned to do, but, do I feel like that was a worthwhile experience for everybody? Oh, you betcha.
Well, it sounds like it. If you could get a little mini series going in a class,
no, it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Did we not? Did we skip over working on Shakespeare and some other things? Like, okay, sure, but in the aggregate, if you say, okay, well, what did you gain from that? What did the students gain from that? Well, they certainly got a lot more skills in a different direction, but a lot more skills than what I had planned for us to do. They were engaged, they were excited about what we were doing. they probably worked harder because they were turned on by what we were doing,
Mhm.
you know. And in the main, you know, well, okay, well, you know, what is it that you really learn? You know, I mean, what is the whole point of getting education? I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, there's knowledge, but you know, I think knowledge comes in a lot of different ways.
Mhm.
You know, and I think many of those standardized tests don't measure or account for anything else than being able to regurgitate facts. You
Mhm.
know, I mean, it doesn't measure um, your social intelligence
Mhm.
really, or you know, it doesn't take into account. Oh, you know, Susie's a great negotiator.
Mhm.
You know, she knows how to help people solve. You know, figure out their problems. You know, well, you know, okay, maybe she can't add 3 and 3,
Mhm.
but you know, she probably maybe can get through life without being able to
Right.
do that.
Mhm.
You know, because she can do this other thing that's
Mhm.
really great. You know, so I don't know. So I have really mixed feelings
Mhm.
about those things, especially when they're tied to, okay, this is you keeping your job.
Mhm.
You know, based on what happens in one year in one class with one group of students.
Mhm.
You know, I think you know, I think if you see that there's some consistent trends or things like that, okay, maybe, you know, maybe there's something there. But, you know, I think it's really hard to say, oh, you know, your third grade class biffed the exam this year,
Mhm.
so, you know, you can't teach anymore.
Right.
You know, I think that's, you know, I think that's sad because I think there are a lot of great people who are great teachers, and just as there are, you know, your students are different, I think your teachers are different too.
Mhm.
You know, and what it is that they are great at, or what it is that they bring to the process that's great. You know, we should try to find space for that and say,
Mhm.
let me use your strengths. You know, rather than saying, okay, well, everybody has to be this kind of teacher. You know, uh, so
No, that's fine. Like these questions are like, there's not a right or wrong answer to any of them. And if you're conflicting, I think that's great. That's what they wanted to be.
yeah,
That's actually was the last question that I had.
okay.
So unless is there anything else that you feel that you would want to add on your experience and with your teaching effectiveness, or if there's anything else that you wanted to add, just for the record, or
Gosh, no, I don't think so.
No?
I've said a lot of things.
I was just saying, like we covered a lot of stuff on there, and I'm very pleased with it. So. That's all I have for today then. So thank you so much. I really appreciate
Oh
it.
yeah, you're very welcome.
Yeah. I can shut this bad boy off now.